Hello and welcome to the Broker Room. I'm Sarah Wells and I'm thrilled to be hosting the podcast as a broker myself with over 20 years experience across finance, banking and media. We've got some great guests lined up this season as we continue to connect with industry colleagues and share valuable insights, market trends and business strategies. Today, I'm joined by Gabby Aoun, BDM from Ord Financial. Welcome and thanks for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
So what is it about your role that you love and that just keeps you motivated through all the ups and downs of Brokerland?
I think obviously, as we know, it's been a challenging couple of years for the industry in general. I think one thing for Ord Financial and my role at Ord is that the message has always been consistent, and that's really focus on the solution. So I think no matter sort of what the environment of the broker world throws at us, it's what is the solution and how we're going to sort of make that happen for the brokers and their clients. Yeah, so really focusing on that outcome and being as consistent as we possibly can with the solution.
Talking about the solution, that gets me a little bit curious. So if you could break it down for those that are, here with us today, how do you define what a solution is and maybe how do you kind of put it into practice?
So for us, we are a non-bank lender. So essentially my role is to firstly educate a little bit about who we are as a lender and our presence in market, but also educate the broker on the diverse range of options that they have. So whether the client is going through just stressful situation, whether it's a divorce or a challenging sort of work adverse that sort of resulted in a default or some arrears, work towards a solution, how we can sort of help that client come out of that. Whether it's someone who is self-employed, doesn't have their financials in place, may have a little bit of tax debt, what's the solution we can do to help the client find sort of a simple verification method on that. So there's a range of things that we do to sort of go, okay, well, it may not necessarily fit the bank brief. What are some ways we can assist to sort of provide that client with the right product and the right solution to get them back on their feet?
So what I'm hearing is you really take the time to encourage a broker to get a lot more curious about their client, to really understand, is this something that's happened to them in their personal life? Is it environmental? Is there something going on in their business that might need a little bit of extra TLC? And then really match that diverse range of products to make sure that you absolutely nail the solution when it comes to being able to lend funds to that client and enable them to move forward.
Yeah, exactly. I think for us as well, it's a matter of educating the broker that there are so many solutions out there in addition to Ord that the broker obviously needs to stay aware of and on top of. But what I really want to do is sort of allow the broker to understand there is a world outside of the banks. And that's really important to understand because the client really at the end of the day just wants the lending or wants a solution or wants the funds. So for us, it's being able to educate that broker to be able to actually engage in that transaction. Because from my point of view, if the client's gone somewhere and it's resulted in a negative experience, assisting the brokers with the tools to be able to say, hang on, here's a solution. It may not be the forever solution, but it's certainly one for today. That the sort of awareness of that and the client actually realizing, hey, someone can assist me, that will be their broker for life, in my opinion,
definitely.
Right? So it's kind of like, hang on, when I needed something, they were there. I may not necessarily know who Ord Financial is. That's okay with us, as long as the broker's aware of who we are.
But they got us from where we were to where we needed to be.
Exactly.
So talking about this big, wide, wonderful world outside your majors in your non-traditional or, subprime, whatever we kind of want to call it, what are maybe some of the traits and behaviors that you see that sets ordinary brokers apart from the super successful ones or the ones that are really able to understand, use the products and create those positive changes in the world of consumers that you spoke about earlier?
Yeah, so it actually, that question for me was one of the questions I actually ask the brokers that I see successful or those that give us a lot of volume or those, winning your awards. I wanted personally to understand more about their business and what are they actually doing that sets them apart. And I think the personality trait that remains consistent is actually, I don't know everything.
Humility.
Right? Yeah, humility, right? And we're in such a volatile environment and we're in an environment that requires a lot of education constantly. So I think it's not necessarily about the skills that I have today may not necessarily be the same skills in the next 5, 10 or so years. So it's constantly upskilling, understanding new products, learning about technology, understanding process and development, all those sorts of things, in my opinion, are what sets those brokers apart.
So you've touched on that humility angle, and it's something that I think personally I agree with.
Yeah.
And I'd just like to dig a little bit deeper, because as brokers, when you sit in front of a client that's
Yeah.
trusting you to come up with a solution for them, I think a lot of people feel the pressure to know everything or have all of the answers.
Yeah.
So if we dig a little bit deeper and look at what, brokers can do that maybe want to inquire a little bit further or develop those skills, what are the types of questions that you think, or how brokers can kind of phrase that to convey that feeling of trust and confidence with a client, but also be able to get really to that information that they need to be able to talk to someone like yourself to come up with what that solution for the client is?
I think from my point of view, from a lender's point of view, I think it's more about what is the goal here? What are we trying to accomplish? And really, you'll find that most of the time, whether it's lender to broker, broker to client, people want to talk. And are you willing to listen?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes a broker may come in, or even a lender may come in and say, I can do this, and I can provide this. It may not actually be aligned to what they're looking for.
Yeah.
And if you're actually taking a genuine interest and a genuine approach in what they're trying to do, then at that point, I would sort of reassess and go, great, well, this is what we offer. This is what we can do. And this is a bit about our processes. Expose yourself. And I think the best thing is actually relating your own personal experiences to whoever's in front of you, whether it's me with a broker or a broker with a client. There's many a times where a client's looking to buy their first investment or their first home, and I'm listening to that conversation unfold where it's, well, when I was actually going through this process, this is what I did, and this is how I managed that.
So I think it's really about identifying with the person, across the table from you, or whether a client on the phone or on Zoom, but taking that time to listen to them and maybe ask them to tell you a little bit about their story, what's happened, where they've been, where they'd like to go.
Mm-hmm.
Do you as a lender find that, that information helpful when it comes to being able to help, go through all your myriad of service offerings or products?
Yeah.
So maybe the better the broker can listen, and maybe a couple of curious questions they can ask is going to give you what you need to be able to help them.
Absolutely. I think that is so undervalued in terms of things like, we say broker notes, but that really is a story, and that's the client story. And I think sometimes if you narrow things down too much, you're actually losing what the goal is.
Losing the narrative.
Here. Exactly.
Who
and
are
you're
they?
losing essentially, if they're in hardship, why? Talk us through that. And 9 times out of 10, you actually find that it's due to a life event that they're no longer living through or experiencing. Another reason may be if they want a significant amount of funds. Why do they want those funds?
What are they going to do with it?
What are they going to do with it? And again, once we fully understand that, and I think there's a lot of stigma around, if I provide too much, maybe it's going to
you've really hit the nail on the head.
Right?
I think a lot of brokers get afraid about disclosing too much and then getting penalised for it. And what I'm hearing is, in your space, the more we can know, the more we can share, the better you're able to help those clients.
Yeah.
So we touched a little bit on awards and, successful brokers earlier on, and we've had a chat before we came on this morning about, your love of boxing and also your recently adopted 2 fur babies.
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit about, what it feels like to be, a winner of one of our awards, and also maybe touch on one of those memorable moments in your career and how it shaped you to be the person you are today?
Yeah, I think the award was an amazing shock, actually, and I'm still buzzing from it. And the reason behind that is when I started at Ord, which is about 2.5 years ago, I had no commercial experience. And obviously the award that I won was a commercial award. So I kind of thought, I've got a few years to kind of go. But I think, it takes it back to how passionate are you about, your brokers, your clients, et cetera, and finding that solution. So for me, when I joined Ord, it wasn't necessarily about, okay, it's commercial lending, it's really tricky. Yes, there's an element to that, but it really came down to the fact of all you're doing is diversifying interests, different brokers, different client base, and how are you really going to get back to that primary purpose of the solution? So that's one of the things I'm really proud of in winning the award, because 2.5 years ago, I would have never have seen a commercial transaction, never written a commercial loan. And again, like those brokers we spoke about, it's that resilience. It's really learning, taking on the education.
The Broker Room is proudly brought to you by the Yellow Brick Road Group. To stay up to date and learn more about our exciting industry, head on over to brokers.ybr.com.au and click on the podcast tab. That's brokers.ybr.com.au. Wherever you listen to our show, remember to follow us or subscribe to be notified of our new and upcoming episodes. Well, you've really kind of hit, the nail on the head, and particularly for a lot of people that are, listening today is if you can come in and with, short-term commercial experience, particularly coming into Ord and then, pick up the winner of an award,
Yeah.
is it also the same for those that, if they can have that mindset around being curious, asking the right questions, really understanding the borrower, they can kind of segue out of resi across into commercial and not worry about not having all of those years of experience to be able to provide great solutions for clients and enjoy themselves.
Absolutely. And I think the difference between, I guess, lending world and broker world for me was, all right, I'll print off the policy and I'll learn everything there is about the policy. And then I guess I'll put it to the test once I get there and let's hope for the best. Obviously, I've had amazing coworkers, leadership, all of those things tied in together. But I think from a broker's point of view, there's so many communities. Obviously, there's different aggregators with a range of brokers within that aggregation or that space that will be sort of a specialist in that area. Why not rely on those members? Why not rely on those people to assist you rather than just printing off something from a website,
And that goes back to what you were saying, people, you don't need to know everything.
Yeah.
But if you can listen, you can ask the right questions and you can rely on the support of those around you, you can put your clients into the best position possible.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So we've spoken about awards and we can see that, you were shocked. I mean, we weren't shocked because clearly you're amazing.
Thank you.
We get to see that each and every day. So apart from award winning, has there been one of those moments that was just like super rewarding for you? Whether it be, getting a deal across the line, seeing something get turned around, one of those moments that you hang on to when, life gets challenging or work, you kind of feel as though you're kind of pushing it uphill.
Again, when I started at Ord, it was such a small company. Like I'm talking, I would say we're about 30 employees in general.
Wow.
And again, obviously I'm just a BDM in sort of this big growing company, but to be a part of something that was so small in size and now 2.5 years on to see the growth, 80 employees, a national footprint, being on aggregator platforms, assisting many brokers and clients, etc. For me, actually looking back and going, hey, I was a part of that journey, right? Rather than just coming into an established brand, the solutions, the lending, all of it's amazing. And there are some loans where I go, this is going to be challenging, but we get through it. But I think primarily the main thing here is actually being able to see the growth and actually identifying with that growth and going, I may just be a BDM in this business, but I feel so much more than that because we're intimate enough to be able to speak to the leaders, work with the leaders and really identify what does this market need and why are we different. So for me, that's probably the most exciting part.
And what I hear from, sitting here from a broker perspective as well is that, you can walk into a really well-established brand that really clearly has its policy, it has its procedures, it has its niche and it has its appetite. But being able to be part of a small growing brand gives you that ability to have feedback, listen to your brokers, respond and deliver products and policies that can really make a huge difference in the life of consumers and people out there and business owners. So that sounds like an amazing thing to do.
Yeah. And I think it really comes down to, who has established this business and what is their primary objective. So for us, from, I guess, a managing director or leadership point of view, it was, yeah, okay, there may be some similarities with our product and what we offer, but how are we going to be different? How are we actually going to be a broker business and work for the broker? And again, to your point, when you're nimble and small enough, you can actually implement feedback.
Yeah,
it's all well and good to say, that's really cool, thanks so much, put in the suggestion box. But to actually see that being taken on and sort of valued, that means a lot to a broker and also the staff. Like to us to actually see, I've introduced you to some of my brokers and this is how they feel about the brand. Generally good, positive, happy. These are some things that you could probably implement to make it better, and to actually see that happen, it's amazing. So it really does come back to the leaders of the business and how much they're willing to actually.
And they really listen.
Yeah.
And as brokers, for us to be able to give really good, strong, meaningful feedback, not just criticism, because, we can certainly let you know when things don't go quite to plan.
Yeah, exactly.
But being able to let you know what consumers are wanting out there, what we're kind of, anticipating in some of the challenges really helps us to have that really strong partnership and be able to drive innovation, because that's where I think probably things are going to need to head over the next 2 to 3 years in
Definitely.
order for us to maintain relevancy and stay competitive.
Definitely.
So thinking back to your time coming into the industry, what is, and this is the question I love to ask people the most of all, what is that one bit of advice, word of warning or encouragement that, your current self could have shared with your past self and made maybe the road a little less bumpier, a little bit more fun?
I think control what you can control,
Yeah.
essentially, is basically headline bold size 24 font, over my head. I
Neon
think,
lights?
yeah, neon lights, it's all happening, glistening. I think for me, it's really about, you're at the end of the day, you're dealing with real life people and
Yeah.
real life situations. So if something doesn't necessarily go to plan, I was really taking that on, really, at night going, is this settlement going to go through? Almost as though I'm the broker acting for the client, because I'm really passionate about, again, that solution and making it work for the client. So now it's do everything you can, show up every single day, give it 150% if you need to. And that's okay. But if things don't necessarily go to plan, that's okay, as long as you've done everything you can.
So what I'm hearing is about not sweating the small stuff. And I
Yeah.
know as a broker, it's probably one of the biggest things I do. You worry about all the little things,
Yeah.
because you work with a client, you deliver a solution for them, but they're going to remember that last few days,
Yes.
whether it be the settlement, whether it be the funding, however it goes.
Yeah.
What are some of the practical ways that maybe you put that into practice about not sweating the small things? I know you box. Is that a way to kind of, get out some of that
Yeah.
anxiety, spend aggression,
Yeah,
whatever we got?
definitely. There's a few ways. There's obviously how many times have we done something and look back and literally laugh at
Yeah.
how we reacted?
Totally.
Literally be like, are you serious? This was consuming you. You lost sleep. You thought this was the end of the world. So put that back into perspective. Sometimes when you're in it and going through it, take a step back, write it down and be like, have I had this situation before? What was the outcome? It was actually okay.
Yeah, the sun still came out the next day. No one died.
It was actually okay.
Yeah.
We're doing everything we can. And obviously, personally, as a relief, gosh, we are in a challenging industry. I don't see it like a broker does in terms of really being involved. But even from where I'm coming from, it is overwhelming, all these rate movements, all of these changes, best interests, royal commission. So for me, the boxing is absolutely one of those things. Whenever I can get in, just lash it out for 45 minutes. I think it's really important. Everyone's different, to find your thing.
Yeah, you definitely have to find your thing. I think, one of the things I've tried to look at over the years is we can get so focused on the tiny little details that we can miss the solution. And I know when working with BDMs, working with credit managers, we can get so focused on things not going right that we can actually miss those moments where you can build a relationship. You can think of a different solution, but you can also educate the client and get them to a space where they can understand that things aren't going to be perfect. It's part of our role is to execute, but it's also part of our role to understand and make sure that what we've given them is going to be a product and a lender that's suitable for however long that period be. And if we can find that way to find that outlet, go for a walk, listen to music, go box, walk the fur babies, it really puts us in that position where we can stay focused, but also not fracture relationships.
Yeah.
Because we're only as good as the people that we work with on a day-to-day basis.
I think it goes back to your point, though, about humility. And I think a part of that is communication. So even when you feel like things aren't necessarily going to plan, pick up the phone and say, look, we've had a bit of a rough day. Things may take a little bit longer than usual. I'm working with the lender. We're doing everything we can. So it may not be the conversation you ideally wanted to have, because the next chat you may wanted to give an approval or loan documents. But I think the communication piece really shows the applicant that you're trying, they're not chasing you.
Yeah.
You're the one giving them those
You get on the front foot.
Yeah.
You do. Thank you so much for being here today with me.
Thank you.
It was really lovely to get to know you, and I look forward to seeing what the rest of the years that you're here in third party has to hold for you.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Gabby. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of The Broker Room with Sarah Wells. That's me, by the way. If you enjoyed today's episode and want to listen to more, then head on over to brokers.ybr.com.au. While you're there, you can reach out to the Yellow Brick Road team, whether you're an aspiring mortgage broker looking to make a career change or just stay informed in this exciting industry. Until the next episode, take care and always stay curious.